Good evening, citizens. My name is Ban Shattersong, captain of the Bloody Hands Mercenary Company, as you might or might not already know. And today I'm going to drop an episode around the Winds of Fortune concerning Navarre. Or more specifically, it's going to be concerning a handful of people, Navarre, but mainly those who live in Therunin, or those with herb gardens, the Thimble, which is one of our national bourse seats. I think it produces weirwood, and it was elected at the last. No, E1, if I remember correctly. The Dredge Master of Feverwater, which is a set of, I think, dilapidated docks in Therunin. If they are essentially, if they are going to be improved and renovated, then that gives us like a sea route to attack the Druge from. And then also, if you're any part of the Imperial Senate or an apothecary. So this is the article called Make a Deal, and I'm going to run through it now. And before I jump in, yes, this is a new format of episode. No longer I'm going to try and be Ban pretending to care about Therunin, because I just couldn't do that. I just Therunin, wet swampy place, just the last place Ban wants to be. He wants to be on the course. The coast? Gosh, jeez, don't know what came out there. He wants to be on the coast. The coast of the Brass Coast. Perhaps with his family from Feroz, Rip. But for the moment, he's not going to get that. So Therunin are not going to get the proper treatment. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's begin. During the spring equinox, the Cardinal Darian numbers focused the eyes of the Prosperity Assembly on Therunin. Virtuous folk have turned their attention to the Navari territory, looking for opportunities to increase the prosperity of the inhabitants, and with particular attention being paid to the docks and, air quotes here, neighbours. Therunin is by no means a wealthy territory. You can say that again. It's hard to farm mud. The, the bayou and the swamps are crisscrossed by trods, but there are few roads, and while there are plenty of steadings, they tend to be small and relatively isolated. The largest settlement in Therunin is probably Peak Edge Stead on the western border with Rykos, but even there its size is mostly due to the lingering highborn exiles. The excitement around the future of Seren in Miaran, the factually better territory it must be said, has highlighted the perception that one of the three Navari territories is still practically wilderness. For these people, the prompting of the Cardinal of Prosperity could not have come at a better time, and after a great deal of discussion, the virtuous have three proposals that might help improve the prosperity of Therunin. Number 1, the Song of Thorns. The largest and best known settlement in Therunin is that of Peakedge Stead, as I said, and built amidst the branches of immense ancient trees. The tranquil steading is a renowned centre for the study and practice of herb lore and healing. There are reasonable roads connecting it to the steading of High Kalkis in Rykos and to High Watch in Morrow that make it a popular stopping off point for imperial merchants, especially those wanting to trade with the Navarre. It is certainly one of the most prosperous places in Therunin, not really saying much, but the brokers propose the construction of something that will transform it into the most prestigious place to study herb lore and medicine in the Empire. So quite the claim that maybe the Anvil Hospital might get a little bit jealous of. So anyway, the details. The Grand Hospital, called Thornsong House, to build it in Therunin would require a Senate commission, 120 wains of weirwood, 240 crowns, 9 months to complete, and an upkeep of 10 thrones each season. Now I know that I think Liathadin as a territory costs to have a 20 or 40 to the imperial purse. So considering this is one building, and it costs, let's say, at worst, a quarter of a territory to maintain, that is a tad expensive. Admittedly, not an expert here, dear listeners, but that sounds a bit pricey. 120 wains of weirwood is an eye-watering amount. 240 crowns is probably pocket change, however. Money is I hate to say this, money is almost worthless in Empire. So yeah, the Wains of Weirwood did the real hard part there. The Thornsinger would be a new imperial title, appointed annually by the herb garden owners of Navarre. So similar to how the Thimble is elected, I believe. So a cool thing for us there. In addition to a ministry, the Thornsinger would oversee development of new ways for imperial apothecaries to use herbs. And if work on the project has not begun by the start of summer 385, so that's a year from this year's E3, enthusiasm, love that word, enthusiasm for the project amongst the prosperous citizens of Therunin will have faded. So basically, we've got a year to get this done. Whilst every imperial nation practices the arts of physic and apothecary, the Navarre consider themselves the true masters of herb lore in the empire, and I don't think that is misplaced. There is good evidence to suggest it was the Navarre that brought the secrets of Lao to the Highborn, and many of the potions used in the empire were developed by the Navarre, although others claimed they were acquired whilst travelling the trods. But hey, don't hate the winner. Now, there is a chance to build on that heritage. Peak Edge Song is a popular destination for highborn healers and benefits from regular trade with the herb gardens of Rykos. The Great Forest Orcs of the Lower Tarn Valley also provide invaluable new perspectives on the techniques for brewing potions. Indeed, these talented herbalists, the Orcs, claim to have originated several potions that the Druze then stole from them and are only now becoming known across the Empire. By building on these relationships and by making Peak Edge Song a beacon for imperial apothecaries, they propose to create a college for the study of herb lore unmatched in the Empire, and the heart of this college would be a weirwood hall and a set of herb gardens built around it, and possibly around one of the largest trees in Peak Edge itself, thus the name Thornsong House. Now it will cost 120 wains, as I said, alongside 240 crowns, 9 months upkeep, 10 thrones each season to maintain. As a unique structure, it will need to be commissioned by the Imperial Senate, and when complete, it will be the premier site for the study of herbs and create an imperial title. The well-worn path for appointing this national position would be via the tally of votes, so this would be the herb garden owners of the Var. The Thornsinger will actually oversee a ministry as part of this hospital as well. So ministries, for those who don't know, are oh, hang on a second. Yep, thank you. Gosh, I love the pause button. Ministries are like sinecures, where essentially, if you're responsible for one, you get to buy stuff in bulk. There's a bunch of them in the Empire. Like it's, for example, a mining ministry or sinecure. You can, let's say 30 crowns will get you like 40 or 50 ingots of metal. So typically below the market price of around about a crown per resource. And they're pretty good. They are pretty good. So it's cool that there's a ministry built into this, and that ministry will allow them to secure both healing herbs and medicinal potions. More importantly, however, they will guide the herb masters of the Empire in expanding their mastery of herb lore. Once the title is appointed, the Thornsinger will be presented with 3 potential avenues of investigation that could be pursued over the coming year. They get to announce which one to focus on in the Imperial Senate. The Navarre will work with their allies to pursue this research and uncover new ways to use herbs. Each such project will require a large amount of these herbs, and they will need to be provided by Imperial citizens, because of course they will. It's going to take at least a year, and magic will not be able to speed up this process. And on a out of character note here as well, the project will be handled in a similar way to a Senate commission, in that any character will be able to donate herbs or money to its completion during downtime. So when you get off field, log on to your character account and you can submit your cash. To do so though, this caught me out the first time, you've got to actually check in your cash and resources at the end of an event. So let's say after 3 p.m. on a Sunday, you go to Gods, the queue will be fairly chunky, let's say, if you're not in a rush, feel free to come back later. You go up, you put your stuff in a baggie, you sign a paper form saying like, this is 10 thrones with 4 wains of weirwood and 10 ingots of orichalcum, for example. You pop that in, they count it up, and they'll credit your account once downtime has been uh, processed. And then you log on and you can pick the options of where to spend your cash, your hard-earned cash and resources. So there are, here we go, talking about the ministry. So there's two, the Gardens of Song and the Hand of the Healer. So I think they'll have access to both of these from what I can see, which is awesome. The Garden of Song is going to be, it's all based in crowns, and in return they will get doses of herbs. So let's say 30 crowns, here we go, that's there. So 30 crowns will net you 12 doses of True Vervain, 12 doses of Marrowwort, and 26 other random herbs. So those other randoms will be Cerulean, Mazarin, sorry, I keep saying Mezzanine. Cerulean Mazarin, Blade Root, and there is another one that I have forgotten. But either way, apart from Vervain and like Vervain itself goes for less than a crown. Usually it's probably worth about 10 to 15 rings. That's very generous. I'd say right about the 13, 12, 13 mark is where I usually sell it for. Um, so let's call it 10 to make the maths easy. That's 120 rings. It's all right. Then 12 doses of Marrowwort. In theory, Marrowwort goes for a crown, but its its main use is in potions, I would say. Is Fortunately for us players, Marrowwort isn't used very often because it's used to stave off the effect of being terminal, pretty much. So, since most players don't go terminal every event, the demand for Marrowwort is low from a physic point of view, but from a potion side, it can be useful. But because physics, I would say, are more popular than apothecaries, there's less demand for this particular herb. But it's the other 26 that really matter. Those will all, like, blade roots, you've got venoms, cerulean mazarin, nailed it. Cerulean mazarin will go sometimes for more than a crown a pop, but at the barest minimum, if you're not getting a crown for a dose of cerulean, or says mez for short, you're getting scammed. But that's 26 doses of crown-worthy herbs, plus another 24 of an even split between Vervain and Marrowwort. So for 30 crowns, that's a really good deal. That's a really good value for that ministry. And these range all the way from 7 crowns, which gets you sort of right about, I'd say about 11 crowns from reading this, 11 crowns worth of resources, all the way up to 65 crowns going in, which will net you maybe 75 crowns at the end. So I'm sure you could be more efficient going around Anvil and being a particularly good salesperson or haggler. However, for the person who owns this ministry, they're going to have a great time printing money, and also they'll be able to collect money from the nation, buy these herbs, and then stuff them straight back into other opportunities. So it's going to be a really cool way of getting more herbs into the nation, which we desperately need. The other ministry, the Hand of the Healer that I mentioned before that rant, this is for potions, which is actually really cool. I don't think I've seen one of these before. So for 7 oh my goodness. So apologies, listeners. Once again, pause button. What a thing. Yeah, the reason I paused there is that these potion productions are pretty great. So for 7 crowns, which is the lowest level for the Hand of the Healer, you get 1 sovereign specific. It itself is worth at least 5 crown. 1 Maledict's Medicament, 1 Tranquil Nostrum, 1 Anodyne Analgesic. Yeah, Analgesic. 1 Anodyne Analgesic, and 2 Elixir Vitaes. Elixir Vitaes are your basic health pot in Empire, and the others, I think, sort of do a mixture of anti-venom and anti-cleave, that kind of stuff. It's a really, really, yeah, anti-traumatic wounds for the Anodyne Analgesic. Nailed it. So yeah, for 7 crowns, that is a ridiculously good trade, and that is pretty awesome. And then if we go up to 65 crowns at the maximum end, we've got 5 sovereign specifics, 5 Maledict's Medicament, so it's just all the same potion. Oh, no, it's not. 5 Sovereigns, 5 Maledicts, 5 Tranquil Nostrums, 5 Elixir Vitaes, 3 Anodynes, and then 3 Ossian Solutions as additionals. And the Ossian Solution is an anti-cleave potion. Um, that is awesome. That is really cool. Okay. It might shock and surprise you, listeners, but when I do these kind of articles, I do not read them beforehand, so I discover them as I go. And this, let's call it informal style, I'm going to try and experiment with. I'm shocked. That's awesome. Damn. Okay, great. So, conclusion to option number one from the prosperity. Uh, I guess yeah, the Cardinal of Prosperity for Therunin. Song of Thorns is a hospital. It's going to be expensive to maintain, but the person who gets the title is going to be rolling in it. And also their ability to buy that many herbs is going to really enable the nation to take advantage of opportunities. So, at first glance, solid 8 out of 10 opportunity. It's pretty good. Let's go to number 2, Fever Dreams. So this is where the docks at Fever Water that I mentioned earlier could get us access to the Druge lands, could be significantly expanded thanks to recent information about Sarengrave. So the docks in Fever Water are ancient, jutting quays of white granite and weirwood that may date back to the height of the Terranale Empire. They are built in the ruins of quite a large settlement, and much larger than would be appropriate if they were merely used for fishing, kind of implying here that it was more of a trade hub originally. The advisor on the Valorn recently commissioned the Department of Historical Research to look into the docks, whilst the Imperial heroes mapped the parts of the Malum on the other side of the lake, the territory of Sarengrave. The appraisal commissioned by the Imperial Senate regarding the feasibility of raising a slave rebellion in Druze territory has brought to light the presence of the Bloodwater Spears, a group of orcs that lives along the eastern banks. It also confirmed the suspicion that the shores of the far eastern third of the lake are dominated by the Valorn of Bintal Dol. As a consequence, interest in the Fever Water, and especially the docks, is heightened at the moment. So a little bit to digest there. So basically, we've got Therunin, there's a lake, and on the other side is Druge territory. We've sent some hero slash spy slash military units, I believe, to go and have a look at inciting a slave rebellion in Druge territory. That is not going to be easy because the Druge are incredibly good at controlling their population through fear. So if you're going to start a rebellion, you better be damn sure you're going to win. And then also the advisor on the Valorn is not exclusively limited to making Valorn related decisions, although in this case it's, it's kind of bridged the gap between a bit of Valorn management of Bintal Dol, which is on the other side of the lake as well, but then also getting those commissions to look into historical research on the docks themselves, which weren't originally associated with the Valorn. So yeah, it's really interesting at the moment, and my friend, I can't say friend, I see, the Senator for Therunin, Travid Longest Path, has been particularly keen on these docks for a long time, so it's really cool to see that these have sprung to the fore. In the summer of 379, so this will be 5 years ago, the Imperial Senate created the post of Dredge Master of Fever Water to oversee the docks and dredge the depths for valuables. The operation has always been limited in scale due to the dangers of the marshes, read hydras, and forests, read druge, that border the Fever Water. Between the hydra and intermittent rates of the druge, there we go, I nailed it, it is difficult to maintain any strong presence on the shores of the Fever Water. And then in the autumn of 378, so the year before that title was created, the first forays into the southeastern end of Fever Water were planned but ultimately scrapped. Now, however, the Empire has a much better idea of the terrain along both sides of the lake and presents an opportunity. So we could expand the docks, as I mentioned at the top. This is where the ruins would be converted into a fortified steading, and its remit would be greatly expanded. So think that trading hub that we were talking about earlier. The building up of the steading would require a Senate commission, just like the other opportunity, 6 wains of white granite and 12 wains of weirwood, and then 36 crowns in labour, and it would only take 3 months to complete. So, in comparison to the 120 wains of, let me check, weirwood, I believe. Yep, 120 wains of weirwood, eye-wateringly expensive. That is 480 thrones. In comparison, 6 wains of white granite and 12 of weirwoods takes us to around about just shy of like 80 thrones, depending on market rates for this. So significantly cheaper. But also 36 crowns in labour. So that's just, yeah, just under 5 throne. Again, senators can probably do that with pocket change. And 3 months to complete is between now and next event. So this would be a much cheaper and quicker opportunity. Realistically, before we dive into it, going to be a spoiler. It's probably not going to be as good as the other one, but let's see how it goes. Those parts of the East Ashes that are not entirely underwater are wild marshes, dominated by dripping ancient mangrove trees. And even before the fall of Zenith, the region was a regular target for Jews' raids and for monster attacks as well. While there are several steadings in the area, they tend to be built in the northwestern parts of the region, and they're best to guard against the Forlorn of Sweetglades. With the encouragement of the Cardinal of Prosperity ringing in their ears, a group of Navari brokers have joined the researchers heading to the docks on the Fever Water to make their own assessment of the situation there. And that news is not particularly good. There are, air quotes here, wealth of the Fever Water, such as it comes from recycling what amounts to rubbish drawn from the thick layer of silt at the bottom of the lake. So, when I said earlier sarcastically farming for mud, I wasn't really being that sarcastic. It's pretty much what they do. Marchers get jealous. You might farm the earth, but we're now farming the earth underwater. It's dangerous work and rarely provides anything of real value. Worse, the dredging boats themselves are restricted to the northwestern end of the lake due to the, druge and monsters along the wilder southern and eastern banks. In the eyes of these brokers, the key represents a wasted opportunity, and they have a proposal to significantly improve its worth to Navarre. So using the old Therunin ruins as a starting point, or Therunin if you're going to pronounce it properly, but screw you. If we're going to use that as a starting point, they proposed that a fortified steading would be built around the docks, and that the piers themselves would be restored and expanded. In addition to the flat-bottomed dredging boats that already use them, they proposed building a number of faster launches intended specifically to protect the dredgers when they are about their business, allowing them to push into the Sarengrave half of the lake and the presumably untouched bounty waiting there. The valuable mud, you could say. So basically building escort ships for the traders and for the mud farmers. In addition, they proposed that the dredging boats be supplemented with other boats intended not to drag the bottom of the lake, but to venture into the marshes and forests along the shores of the Fever Water. A preliminary summary indicates that whilst these areas are hard to navigate by land, they can be reached with ease by boats. And such raiding boats would need to give the Druge settlement in the Bloodwater Marshes a wide berth, at least for now, because it's a heavily fortified settlement. But expanding the operations there would greatly improve the dredge master's impoverished income. Even on the article here, impoverished. Great. So, the proposal would need to be commissioned by the Imperial Senate, and to take advantage of the existing ruins, it would be white granite and weirwood, 6 and 12 respectively, plus 36 crowns in 3 months. Not bad. Firstly, the ability to dredge parts of the southern and eastern depths of the lake, as well as the northwestern end, would double the amount of metal recovered each season from 4, oh my goodness. Wow, so the current Imperial Dredge Master gets 4 ingots a season, and that will double to 8. Hopefully you can hear that applause. That is great news. That is a 50% return on investment. Wow, look at that. Sorry, 100% return on investment. Gosh, I can't count today. That is sorry, that's making me smile because that's such a that's such a paltry amount, but at the same time, awesome. That's great. Um, love it. So, secondly, going from 4 to 8 random shiny pieces of metal every season, the Dredgemaster could also be prepared to pay for some thorns, or even mercenaries, or from other imperial nations. If so, the boats on the Fever Water would be able to push into the Druge-dominated areas of Bloodwater Marsh and occupied Zenith, as well as launching raids against the shores. The more the Dredgemaster pays, the more effective these efforts would be, increasing the bounty of metals, the paltry bounty of metals recovered from the depths, as well as providing Ambergelt, Beggar's Lie, and healing herbs. With enough dominance of the Fever Water, it might even be possible to bring a little Ilium out of its depths. This would function as a... Go on, have a think. What's our word of the day almost? It's ministry! Yes, this would function as a ministry, so let's have a look at that. So it doesn't have a cool name, so let's just call it uh, the Muddied Docks Ministry. Starting right at the bottom, for 7 crowns, you'd get 3 random metals, 3 measures of Ambergelt, 3 measures of Beggar's Lie, 2 doses of True Vervain, and 2 doses of random herbs. I mean, that's a good return. So all the metals there, Ambergelt and Beggar's Lie, would be a crown each. So that is 9 crowns. 2 doses of Vervain is another crown, and then 2 doses of random herbs would be maybe another couple crowns if you're lucky and get 2 Says Mez, for example. So 9, 10, 11, 12. So put in 7 crowns and get 12 out. It's not bad, it's alright. However, the Ring of Ilium is very, very spicy. So that would, jumping right to the other end of the scale, for 65 crowns, you get 10 random metals, 19 Ambergelts, 15 Beggar's Lie, 10 Vervain, 10 random herbs, and 1 Ring of Ilium. The Ring of Ilium itself is what throws this way into the black, if you want to use a financial term here, because the Ring of Ilium itself can, especially now we've lost one of our key Ilium sources that was in the Brass Coast to the Grendel with the Ferosian Peace Treaty. We actually have a short supply of Ilium, and that's pretending that it wasn't in short supply already. So, one ring of Ilium, as far as I'm aware, used to go for 5 rings, and it might go for 7 or so now, 7 or 8, 7 or 8 thrones, bear in mind. So, it is an extremely valuable piece of, it's called star metal, and 65 crowns for that, great deal, because you also get 10 random metals and 19 and 15 Beggar's Lie and Ambergelt. So that's going to take us to 30, 45 with the Vervain, 50, 10 random herbs. Let's call it 757 minus 1, 56. So yeah, you're looking around 56 crowns of resources before you put the Ring of Ilium on top. So yeah, you're probably making about 3 thrones worth of value at the barest minimum on that, which is great. That's 24 crown, pretty good. And also but the fact is Ilium means that not only are you just trading metals at the market for cakes and sweets like I do, Ilium allows you to start taking part and influencing some major, major events, such as the creation of national artifacts. So that is actually pretty cool. So I bet the Dredgemaster is incredibly happy with this opportunity. Um, ooh, in addition to this, there is a conjunction available. An opportunity to explore a wreck wedged beneath the surface of the Fever Water. The civil service suggests that the Dredgemaster of Fever Water might be in the best position to organise the mission. So the confrontation with some of the Therunin outlaws during the spring equinox resulted in the rescue of one Merel, the first advisor on the Valorn, who had apparently been kidnapped whilst exploring some Therunial ruins near the docks. It seems that rather than leave the area, Merrill has continued to investigate certain leads, and his researches have borne unexpected fruit. The discovery of an ancient petrified boat wedged partially in an air-filled cave at the bottom of the fever water. The wreck is very old, potentially Therunin origin, and seems to be incredibly well preserved. Merrill has been unable to reach the wreck himself, and indeed, when he attempted to do so, he sustained, I quote here, vicious injuries from the local wildlife that had left him unable to visit Anvil this season in person. Fair enough. Getting mauled by a particularly large catfish will stop you from stop you from walking. Instead, he has sent news of its existence to Anvil in a letter, and with some careful investigation later, the Civil Service have confirmed that there is indeed a conjunction of the Sentinel Gate leading to a location beneath the fever water that seems to be this air-filled cave. The gate will open at 1 in the afternoon on Saturday and will provide access to the cave for no more than half a dozen people, so 6. Given the location and what details Merrill has been able to provide, it seems likely that the Dredge Master would be the person to organise this, and there are 2 potential problems. The wreck that went down in waters appears to have been infected with a kind of venomous freshwater octopus native to the Severn Grave. Oh my god, that's great. And whilst the creatures themselves are unlikely to be more than a nuisance, there are signs of something larger, a predator preying on the nasty little cephalopods, lairing in the vicinity of the wreck. Anyone venturing through the gate will need to make careful preparations. So basically, we've got poison octopus boy and either a mega squid, a kraken, or Cthulhu in there as well. So with 6 people, that's probably going to be an absolutely awesome fight. Getting onto that skirmish is going to be difficult, I won't lie. But I'm sure with the Dredge Master being so impoverished, maybe bribe your way on. Walk up and say, I'll fund the first, let's say the first production batch from your ministry if it gets built, and get that Ring of Ilium for him. So yeah, that'd be really cool. So that is option 2. Overall, cheaper, quicker, and comes with poisonous octopuses. I've got to give that a 9 out of 10. The Ilium is really cool. The return on investment for the ministry is pretty solid. It does affect, I would say, less people, because the first one, the Thornsong House, that ministry generates a lot of herbs which you can pump back into the nation, and like for Navarre, being able to research new things would be really, really cool. However, with the fever water, it could lead to larger trade winds. It could be a new port for the Empire. It could be a way of actually assaulting Druge lands via sea. And also getting access to Ilium at the moment is really important. And I'm not gonna lie, it's got a solid 9 out of 10 because there's big fish somewhere, and we can confirm if Cthulhu exists or not. So yeah, pretty damn cool, I think. One side note here is that I actually missed out part of the Thornsong House opportunity. So let's quickly go back to part 1 again. So this is the hospital, 120 wains of weirwood, very expensive but really good return for potions and for herbs. There's actually a couple paragraphs I missed, so apologies. So once complete for the hospital, the project will produce something similar to a schema or a ritual text. A herbal is the technical term, but let's call it a herbal text. This can be studied to learn how to make a new potion. This will be delivered to the Thorn Singer, the position title. He will be solely responsible for determining what happens with it, i.e., do they hoard information and hide it from the rest of the nation for 2 years? Or do they actually use it immediately for the betterment of the nation? We'll see. They could choose to keep the herbal to themselves and share it with a select few, or ask the Senate to make its contents available to every Imperial apothecary. The latter would cost 10 thrones in the Senate motion, but we would get a new potion as apothecaries. It's pretty cool. In anticipation of this Thorn Song house being built, the herb masters of Peak Edge have put forward three promising avenues of research that they could pursue. Number one, studying the comparatively recent Talonvine infusion tonic, a similar potion that uses Realm's Root and Vital Honey rather than Ilium could be created. This would likely open the door to creating some similar tonics for empowering magicians in the other 5 realms. So, Talonvine infusion is essentially a spring-based potion that allows you to buff your casting. The idea here is that it currently uses Ilium to make it, which is, as I mentioned earlier, expensive AF. However, we could swap that out for Realm's Root and Vital Honey, which are less common but much easier to get hold of than Ilium. And we can use that to not create just that tonic for spring, but also the other 5 realms as well. So bolstering the Empire's magical potency. It's pretty cool. Option 2, building on some of the principles involved in the tonics of the open sky. I believe these were given to us by the Lower Tarn Valley orcs, the Great Forest orcs, that's it. And a tonic could be developed that provides protection from the Valorn miasma to the drinker. So kind of like a liquid version of a Abraxas stone, which is pretty cool. And then option 3 is expanding on the lore of the Filters of the High Peaks, a tonic that greatly enhances the magical reserves of magicians, and this could be created alongside the other 3 as well. As an OC note as well, a tonic that grants the drinker an additional 3 points of personal mana for an extended duration. So the differences between option 1 and 3 there, as far as I'm aware, is option 1 will give ritualists more power, because they can add 3 additional ranks to their casting. And then option 3 here will give, let's say, battle mages 3 points of extra personal mana. So that's like another 3 shatters or 3 paralyzes on the front line. So that's pretty cool, actually. That's pretty good. So yeah, sorry for that. Slight aside, I'm going to upgrade my score for the hospital to a 9 out of 10 because lots of herbs, really cool medical roleplay, big opportunity, and we get some new potions as well, all of which are going to be really useful to Navarre. Downside is it's very expensive. Option 2, Fever Dreams at the Docks, as we mentioned, metals, octopuses, small, cheap, all good, 9 out of 10. But a limited, I'd say a more limited, wider impact. And then finally, option 3, that you've all been dying to hear, is around good neighbours. So, oh no, apologies, no, good neighbours is part of the Fever Water Rec. Excellent. So, to stay on part 2, sorry for confusing you all. The Great Forest Orcs are also part of this Fever Water Docks opportunity. They've been living alongside the Navarre of Therunin for some years now, and with minor exceptions, the relationship has been friendly but guarded. They have never made any secret of the fact that their ultimate goal is to return to their homes under the ease of Paytat, however. When news of the Imperial armies fighting in the Barrens reaches them, it energizes many of the orcs of the Great Forest, and there is a great deal of discussion as to what this means for their clan, essentially. What quickly becomes clear is that not every Great Forest orc plans to return to the Barrens. Some have developed friendships with their neighbours and settled down, had families, whilst others have become enamoured with the idea of travelling the trods to visit the remnants of the Great Forest all over the Empire. Still others have taken up permanent residence at Peak Edge Song, studying and in turn sharing their own techniques with the Navarre. And whilst the majority want to go home, they also recognise the debt they owe to their hosts, and when the brokers, encouraged by the Cardinal, speak to their neighbours and approach their counterparts, the Great Forest Orcs, they find, are not only very receptive, but ready with proposals of their own. One is straightforward, the other is potentially more controversial. Okay. Let me use this magical pause button one more time because I'm not sure whether Good Neighbours is actually part of these 3 high level opportunities. 2 seconds, citizens. Cool. All right then. So it looks like I made another mistake, so apologies. The good neighbors section with the Great Forest Orcs seems to be option 3, as far as I'm aware. There's actually like you could guess like a 3.5 at the bottom of it, and that's what threw me off. But anyway, Great Forest Orcs have some proposals for us. So to bring us back to the high level, we've got hospital, docks, and now we've got orcs. The orcs have two options for us: Song of the Green and Dream of the Future. Number one, Song of the Green, is that any Navarre in Therunin will need one fewer wain of weirwood to upgrade their herb garden with the aid of the Great Forest Orcs. And the opportunity remains available until the start of the summer solstice 385, so that's a whole year to do so. The orcs are adept at working with weirwoods, and their ability to build with the precious material outstrips that of the Empire, as evidenced by structures such as the Holt of the Oak, their home. They've been using this skill and the access to weirwood from the thimble to cultivate many herb gardens and farms in the lower Tarn Valley. Now that their security is reasonably well established, they propose to visit the herb garden of any Navarre in Therunin who will welcome them, and employ their affinity for the precious wood to help improve the supply of herbs. And as a result, you get a -1 discount to upgrading your herb garden. So the way upgrading herb gardens works, you need a wain of weirwood to do so, and you need a wain of weirwood per level that you're trying to get to. So everybody, as you spawn in with a new character with a herb garden, you have a level 1 herb garden. To get to level 2, you need 2 wains of weirwood, because the number of weirwood is equal to the level you're going to. So for level 3, you would need 3 wains, 4, you need 4. And what this is doing is giving you a discount on that cost. So to get up to level 2 now, instead of costing 2, it will only cost 1. So that's a pretty major discount. And I believe what an upgraded level adds is something like 20% to your output. So 20%, let's say you get 8 vervain, 8 true vervain, for example, you'll get like one or two extra vervain, and maybe 1 or 2 other herbs at random, maybe a Sesmez, fingers crossed, in your player pack. It is by no means anywhere near worth those. Let's say you spend 4 thrones in the weirwood. It's not worth that yet. However, long term, you make your money back if your character survives. And I believe what you can do is actually, if your character dies, you can write a will and leave that to another member of your striding, for example. So if you're planning to be around for a while, this could be a really good opportunity because it's cheap at the moment. If you have a random wain of weirwood lying around, why not? Because it feels like with all of these opportunities, herbs are going to be incredibly important soon. Is that relevant to Leafadin and potentially destroying of a lawn? I think that's just happy dreaming. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, that's Song of the Green. Option number 2, Dream of the Future. If the Senate will assure the Great Forest Orcs of their intention to cede the ease of Paytat to them, then their gratitude will extend to every Navarre in the Empire. In addition, they will help to cultivate the thimble, permanently increasing its production. However, this opportunity is only available at the summer solstice this year, so E3. To go into more detail, the Great Forest Orcs have several times mentioned that what they really want is to return to their homes on the edge of the Great Forest of Paytat. Their people have apparently lived in the heart for untold generations, and even when they laboured under the tyranny of the Druge, they did not abandon the forest. They tended the weirwood groves known as the Eaves of Paytat, practicing their traditions and venerating the ancient trees. With the Empire again active in the Barrens and inspired by the brokers, they have made a request of the Imperial Senate and offered their support to Navarre in turn. They ask that the Imperial Senate pass a Senate motion agreeing that once the Barrens is an Imperial territory, they will give the Heart of Paytat, and by extension the Weirwood Grove there, to the Great Forest Orcs. In return, their wood shapers will spend the next year travelling the trods with the Navarre, visiting Miaran, Herkinia, and even Brokeliand, offering their expertise to expand herb gardens there, just as they are doing so in Therunin. Furthermore, their tree tenders will help to cultivate the thimble in Therunin, expanding its production by 2 wains each season, so an extra 8 per year. I believe it currently produces 20 per. Is it 20 per year or is it 20 per event? Let's have a quick look. Bum 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 bum. Yeah, won by Idris Eternal for the last 6 years, and then Neme taking it last year. The production itself is 20 each season. So you know what? That is 10% increase in return for losing a Weirwood Grove and part of the Empire. Uh, okay, that's perhaps a more difficult pill to swallow. And in my humble opinion, perhaps not worth it. But anyway, let's read on. The Great Forest Orcs have been receiving a portion of the bounty of the Thimble and will continue to do so until they return to the Barrens. I think they get something like a quarter of it at the moment. So we kick them out. We get our full production of the Thimble plus 10%. But in return, we lose land, a whole Weirwood Grove, and we're not sure how much that produces. But at the moment, it's not in our hands, so it's technically not. We're not gaining anything from it at the moment. And we'll also get the opportunity to upgrade our herb gardens in the rest of Navarre, which is, I think it's good. I don't think it's great though. Obviously, the Senate making a decision now cannot bind the hands of future senators, but that is not what the Great Forest Orcs are asking for. They simply want a public commitment from the Imperial Senate to return to their homes to them. Sorry, they want the Imperial Senate to make a public commitment that once they return to their homes and when the Baron is conquered, they'll do so. And in that event, such a future Senate could choose to ignore the promise made to the Orcs, but there would be likely significant repercussions. That sentence was an absolute train wreck. Let's try again. The essentially, yeah, they want a statement of intent. The Great Forest Orcs want a statement of intent, and we could always go back on our word once the time comes up. I mean, hell, theoretically, we could just exterminate them or kick them out. Put them on a boat into the Fever Water and say goodbye to them. Take both of our Weirwood Groves and our land, and okay, yes, we wouldn't get such a cheap opportunity to upgrade herb gardens, but frankly, like the money we'd get from all that weirwood, we could just plow that back into the hospital, and then get a lot more herbs that way. So yeah, I think the Great Forest Orcs option there is not particularly strong. The downside of betraying them as well is that they could come back to bite us later. They could rejoin the Druge, for example, or simply assist the Druge and not assist us. Tell them of our, territory layouts, military information, that kind of thing. So yeah, I suppose it is it's a nice, in air quotes, a nice idea to be honest with them and help them out. But nice is not a virtue, and overall, what they're offering is not as good value as the Feverwater Docks or of the Thornsong House Hospital. So yeah, I'm going to give that a 5 out of 10 overall. That is yeah, it's mediocre. All right, I talked about a little 3.5, and this is about a Lost Lao Garden. So this isn't entirely related to the Orcs, but it is a little bit. During the spring equinox of 383, so that was spring last year, one of the knight errants of Dawn of House de Rondel led a group of heroes through the Sentinel Gate to a location just outside of Sweetglades. The expedition apparently uncovered the lost Lao Garden of Therunin, a sinecure built in the early days of the Empire that sought to harness the fecundity of the Valorn to grow venom more efficiently. The garden was believed to be overrun and destroyed during the reign of Emperor Nikovar, but it seems that Eadric, the knight in question, and their companions were able to clear the Forlorn spawn from the remains of the old facility. Details are hazy, but it seems that in the wake of their visit, the Briars of the Tarn Valley and the Great Forest Orcs recovered a large supply of preserved venom sap, and a number of pieces of equipment related to its refinement. The Briars had proposed using the equipment to begin refining their own Lao, give them, and gave the name of one of their people, Ursol Gwyn, who was prepared to receive missives from Imperial citizens. The question of what to do with the venom and the equipment, if anything, has still not been fully resolved. There is a separate Wind of Fortune as well for this, called Long Walk Home. On top of the Lost Lao Garden, there's been some trouble brewing. Since the spring equinox, there have been several reports of an outlaw gang operating in southern East Ashes. During the equinox, a band of Imperial heroes and militia travelled there via the Sentinel Gate and gave them a good smack. However, the potential threat of the lawless bandits has by no means been dealt with. It seems that some of them are former Navarre, displaced from Brikeliand and Liathadham, whilst others are convicted criminals who are unable or unwilling to pay fines imposed by imperial magistrates. I wonder who those bandits could possibly know. Perhaps one former deceased. Beautiful, beautiful criminal. Anyway, there's no information about how many there are or how organised. For the most part, they seem to be more interested in raiding the Druge in Zenith than attacking imperial citizens. However, there has been some harassment aimed at travellers walking the trods in East Ashes. And for the moment, the magistrates are monitoring the situation. Whilst nothing too serious has happened so far, some of the settings of Therunin are a little nervous given recent events in Varushka. With the possibility that the Druge might actually be driven out of Zenith, those outlaws will presumably need to find new targets for their raids. And the nervousness that's been generated from Varushka is around another Wind of Fortune for the town of Isemba in Varushka. Basically, it's full of possessed it's full of possessed bandits and outlaws, and also inside, I believe there's a plague wolf. So I am personally super fucking hyped for that skirmish. I won't get on, but I really want to. However, yeah, big problem over there, so it's causing some problems down here too. But there we have it. That's it. That is Wind of Fortune Make a Deal, and with 3 broad options for Navarre in Therunin. A nice hospital, an expensive one, albeit, but of course, medical care is pricey. We've got the Fever Water docks if we want to engage with octopuses and stuff like that, which sounds wicked. And then finally, the Great Forest Orcs continue to be lame as hell and offer us a mixed bag. Again, a 5 out of 10 overall. You know, people upgrading herb gardens is not very, it's cool, don't get me wrong, but from like a financial and perhaps read efficiency point of view here, it's the return on investment is going to be very, very, very long term, and to make it really worth it, we'd have to start giving weirwoods into Navarre for the rest of the empire, which of course won't want to share it, and then selling it to citizens and herb garden owners who are notoriously poor in Navarre, to then slowly get a return on investment across the next 5 years. Not the best plan, I think. It could work, however, if, and hear me out here, is that the Empire, or at least the Senate, provides funding for the purchasing of weirwood within Anvil. That is purchased and then given for free to Navari healers, physics, and apothecaries to upgrade their gardens. However, going onwards from that, there is an expectation that Navari healers will heal others for free using the herbs that they gain. So over the years they contribute more, but over the years the physics will get more herbs, but that will cover the cost of them using their existing herb stocks to heal the heroes of Anvil. So perhaps it could be that kind of long-term view that makes this quite efficient. But anyway, I'm not a senator. What do I know? As a final note, I don't think these are all mutually exclusive. No, I don't think they are. So we could just get all three done. I think the Orcs one and the Feverwater docks will be easy. The hospital will be a little bit more difficult, but we've got a year to do it, so it's doable. And especially if we sort out the Orcs and the Barons relatively soon and get full production of the Thimble back. 120 Wains of Weirwood, if we get 22 per season for a year, that brings us up to 88. We only, theoretically, need to make up the remaining 32 somehow. And multiply that by 4. 120. Ugh, yeah, it's still gonna be expensive as hell. But yeah, anyway, it could be really interesting to get all three of these built and turn Therunin into a powerhouse. So there we are, dear listeners. Different format of Winds of Fortune. I thought rather than just reading it, I would rant and bellow my way and express my unqualified personal opinion on all the goings-ons in the Empire. But yeah, really interesting stuff. Hopefully you're all excited in the run-up to E3. I'm actually going to be away the next couple of weeks before Empire. I'm literally arriving back on the Thursday and coming on site. So this will be the last episode. Until then, have a great time. Get prepped. Bring a bunch of sun cream and some cooler clothes because it's probably going to be a scorcher. And I'll catch you on the battlefield.